This is one of the few times that I've actually seen Jarrell Miller talk positively of Eddie Hearn. He's been very frustrated by the fact that he hasn't got the Joshua fight, Jarrell Miller. And he was kind of maybe not promised the Joshua fight, but Eddie Hearn just made him believe that the Joshua fight was a lot closer for him than it really was. But other than that, he says Eddie Hearn has treated him very well. And he really bigs Eddie Hearn up in this interview. And the reason that I wanted to speak on this is to highlight how rare it is to get treated well in professional boxing for a lot of fighters. Jarrell Miller has taken to social media over the past few weeks, and he's put up some pretty cryptic tweets and posts, I think, on Instagram. And these tweets were about fight contracts and all kinds of other stuff which he wasn't happy about. Being asked to sign a fight contract or whatever the case may be about agreement a couple days before the fight, which does happen very frequently in boxing. But the terms on it not being to his liking, and also promoters trying to sneak things in, or not necessarily promoters, but people within boxing trying to sneak things into contracts while shaking his hand and smiling and patting him on the back and being all friendly. They're trying to sneak in certain clauses into the contract, which I guess would tie Miller into something he don't want to be tied into. So he's basically talking about the snakes in boxing, Jarrell Miller. And he says, with Eddie Hearn, he ain't had none of that. When Eddie Hearn has said, we've got a fight for you on this date, do you want it? And Jarrell Miller says, yeah, I'll take it. It happens. He gets everything Eddie Hearn promised him financially. And it's all good. But Jarrell Miller says that's not the usual thing in boxing. For a promoter to be that straight up with you in terms of when they offer you something and delivering it. So many times promoters offer you stuff and they don't deliver. Now, the person that Jarrell Miller's talking about, who he's not happy with at the moment, I think I know who it is. Jarrell Miller works with a particular person who I believe he's known since childhood, okay, which is Dimitri Salita. But I don't think, I could be wrong here, I don't think Dimitri Salita is the guy that he is talking about with regards to these contracts he's not happy with and just snaky behavior. I don't think it's Salita. I think it's another guy who Miller's been working with for several years. I'm not going to mention the guy's name because I don't want to catch a lawsuit. And my understanding is this is the kind of guy who will take you to court over something you say that's not quite 100%, you know, or something that you can't necessarily prove, even if it is 100%. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. But it's just to illustrate what a shady business boxing is. That's why I'm doing this video. It's so shady. And as a fighter, you want to look for promoters, managers, whoever, who don't have a history of being in court battles with other fighters. That's what you want to look for. It amuses me when people say, oh, Hatman's paid by Eddie Hearn and he's on the Hearn payroll. Look, if a guy is doing something praiseworthy, why not praise him for it? What, just because he's popular, just because it's trendy to hate whoever's popular? Listen, I've been following the sport for so many years, so many decades, and it's rare to see promoters come along who actually treat fighters as well as an Eddie Hearn treats them. Yeah, it's rare. And I'm not saying every single fighter who's worked with Eddie Hearn has been 100% happy. They haven't been. You know, Carl Frampton wasn't happy, he left. Josh Warrington, he found a better deal elsewhere, he left. That's okay. But you didn't see them in legal battles with Hearn, did you? Because normally when fighters leave other promoters, they end up in legal battles. Very often. I think that, well, this new era of boxing promoters is generally a little more ethical than the old era of boxing promoters. the old school guys. De La Hoya, I know De La Hoya gets a lot of criticism these days, a lot of it justified, but De La Hoya and Golden Boy really changed the game when it comes to boxing promotion and the way that they treated fighters. Because the way fighters were treated by Golden Boy, particularly when they first came in to boxing, was so much better than how the old guard in America, the old school boxing promoters have been treating fighters. Golden Boy were treating fighters so much better that it was inevitable that they would manage to sign all these young fighters coming through and what have you, as they did. Golden Boy became the biggest promotional company in boxing after a few years of business. Fighters from far and wide were coming to sign with Golden Boy. And you could say, well, it was because of Richard Schaefer, whoever it was because of. As a company, Golden Boy were doing things which the old school boxing promoters weren't doing. Like giving fighters actual pay slips with a proper breakdown of what percentage they were getting from the overall show revenue. You know, prior to that, fighters weren't getting pay slips. They were just getting a deposit of money in their bank, and that's it. No explanation of what money has gone where. They were kept totally in the dark. It was so exploitative, boxing. But Golden Boy came along and they set a new precedent for how to treat fighters, and they were treating fighters way better than the old school promoters. And it's a similar situation with Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn comes along as kind of like the Golden Boy of the UK, treating fighters way better than the old school promoters in the UK. And I'll leave you guys to decipher who you think I'm talking about. Hearn come along treating the fighters way better. And that's one of the reasons that Hearn has been so successful. It's not just because he's a good salesman, which he absolutely is. This man could sell ice to Eskimos and sand to Arabs. No doubt about it. But that alone will not make you successful as a boxing promoter. You have to have more than that, particularly in this day and age. And Hearn does have more than that. He treats fighters better. Here's what it is. And Jarrell Miller, somebody who is very outspoken. Jarrell Miller is somebody who has no problem criticizing Eddie Hearn. No problem criticizing Eddie Hearn's cash cow Joshua. No problem at all. Even now that he's signed to Hearn for 2 fights. He's still got no problem doing that. And before signing to Eddie Hearn, when he had no promotional contract with Hearn at all, he was just fighting on Hearn's shows. Yeah, because Hearn needed to get people on his shows to fill out the undercard when he was putting those shows on at the Barclays Center with Danny Jacobs headlining. He needed people to be on the undercard, so he was working with lots of different promoters and all kinds of different people who weren't signed to contracts with him. And during that whole period, Jarrell Miller was criticizing Hearn, criticizing Joshua all over social media. Now, it's not to say that Hearn is working with Jarrell Miller out of the goodness of his heart. Of course not. Of course not. It's not like Hearn wants to be Jarrell Miller's friend. No. Hearn sees the commercial value in Jarrell Miller. That's why he puts up with Jarrell Miller's trash talk. That's why he puts up with Jarrell Miller trashing Anthony Joshua, because he can see how that situation can be monetized. But be that as it may, he hasn't tried to rip Jarrell Miller off. And so many other people have tried to rip Jarrell Miller off and have tried to rip many other fighters off. To be fair, to play devil's advocate, Eddie Hearn having a silver spoon in his mouth and coming into the game as part of a successful business, he's not going to be as desperate as a lot of other people in boxing, a lot of other boxing promoters. So he hasn't really been forced into a situation where he feels like he needs to be unscrupulous and rip fighters off. Because a lot of promoters and managers in boxing, they ain't making no serious money. So when they get the opportunity to put something in the contract or get some extra money out of a fighter, they're going to do it. Because they're trying to feed their families. Now, I'm not justifying what they're doing. It's scumbag behavior. But That's one of the reasons why managers and promoters do these things, is because they're not millionaires like Eddie Hearn. You know what I mean? But then again, you get promoters who were very successful, like a Don King, for example, who was very successful. But despite that success, he still felt compelled to give fighters a raw deal. You know, still felt compelled to do that, regardless. So, yeah, I mean, Hearn in a privileged position, starting out as a boxing promoter. But be that as it may, he still treated fighters relatively well. And I think we need to applaud that. I think we need to look at other promoters. And in fact, I've seen certain other promoters in the UK since Eddie Hearn has come onto the scene, and since Eddie Hearn has been calling these other promoters out for the way they treat fighters, not paying them on time, not running a solvent business. He's been calling them out over these things. And I've noticed that their behavior towards fighters and their treatment of fighters has actually improved a little bit. A little bit. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about everything I've talked about in this video. It's happening, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.